Okay, I'm live. Hi, friends. Hope you're all doing awesome. Welcome again to Jaw Time with Realtor Jeet. I'm so honored to have my special guest today. This is the second appearance on Realtor Jeet's Jaw Time. Actually, this is the first person I brought up to Realtor Jaw Time with Realtor Jeet, and I'm so super honored for him to come back and return. We had so much fun last time. And of course, it's scrolling down on the bottom. If you see the law office of John Zenir Esquire. John Zenir is a really good friend of mine, and he is a divorce, family law, and estate planning attorney. And also, he has a mission, and his mission is to help good people focus on creating a new beginning because we know how important it is for you to provide your family with clarity and security for the future. That is John's mission, and I am going to bring him up right now.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
John.
Thank you, Harjeet. No, welcome. Thank you, Harjeet. I mean, Harjeet is the best. There's no question. Thank you
I
so much
appreciate
for having me. And it's very nice of you to segue in with the mission statement, because one of the things I wanted to talk about with creating new beginnings, one of the things that people don't recognize is that the psychologists tell us that the most traumatic thing you can do is to go through a family law matter, divorce, separation, custody, orders of protection. It's absolutely was unbelievable stress inducing and traumatic. So much so that the only thing that's worse for an individual emotionally is to go through the death of a close loved one. So I think that's one of the things that people going through these issues need to understand and see if they can go out. And what I always recommend to folks is it's a great idea to get into some form of therapy to unburden themselves so that this way they can hopefully gain that clarity as to what they're going through and begin to formulate a plan. Okay, so consider that, folks, in when you're faced with these circumstances. Okay, now what is it we wanted to talk about today, Harjeet? We could talk about almost anything all day long, you and I. There's no question.
Yes, we can. And I just love what you were talking about just earlier right now, because that is very important. A lot of the times we don't think about what our future is going to look like if it doesn't go the way that we quote unquote that we planned it to go. And sometimes life takes us on another path. And if we're not prepared, that can cause some type of chaos within ourselves. And when we have chaos within ourselves, it's that, like that what you were talking about, John, that trauma that can come up,
Yeah.
and it's hard. It's hard.
You're
That's
so right. One of the things that I've learned from our mutual mentor is that it's not the things that happen to you in life, it's how you react to the things that happen to you. So one of the areas that I thought I would bring up today is what are the three most important things that you need to consider before you go through and when you're going through some kind of a family law litigation. Well, the first thing that I found over the years is stay off social media. And that doesn't just mean today or yesterday or last Tuesday or next Wednesday. Stay off of it. You're bound to say something negative about the other side that's going to come back to harm you in the future because you're human. So avoid it like the plague. You don't need to have conversations about your litigation on the social media. Not a good idea. Step two that I see so much of. It's amazing to me how many people do not know anything about their finances. They have just left it to the other person to write out the checks, to pay the bills, to invest money in savings accounts or whatever they do with money. So before or when you get involved, first thing you need to do is you need to go through your mail. You need to go through every piece of mail that comes in. You need to read it. You need to make a copy of it, okay, and make sure that in fact you know your finances. And I don't just mean the little things like how much you tip in the paperboy every Wednesday afternoon when it collects. You need to know it all and know as much as you can. You're entitled to have a copy of your tax return. So many people just don't do that. And the last thing you need to know, and that this goes back to the initial thing I mentioned, which is about the trauma that you're going through, and that is you need to get your head in a position where you recognize that there's a lot of things that you're going to have an emotional reaction to. You're going to hear all kinds of things that you're going to get angry about, that you're going to be depressed about, that you're going to have your self-esteem is not going to be where it should be. And so what's going to happen? You may react in a negative way. And that negative way is not going to help you in the litigation. So it's very important to understand that there's nothing wrong with your feelings and that you should have those feelings because they're yours, but you have to deal with them now in a way that doesn't allow you that you don't allow yourself to make a decision based on those emotions and negative feelings. And the way I like people to try to think about it is that there are things that are very important to you and you and you and your family. There's no question. But now you're in the legal arena, and now we have to focus on the things that are important to the judge. And
Mm.
I call those facts legally sufficient facts. And as soon as we get together and start working towards our goal in a particular piece of litigation, we want to start talking about what's legally sufficient. I don't mean to say we're going to discount the emotion, but we have to make certain that we're not out there just bringing up all kinds of emotionally charged
Mm.
items that the judge is not empowered to do anything about. You know, a classic example. Frequently, sometimes um, person one spouse is, maybe fooling around with another person, and that's what broke up the marriage. The court, I'm afraid, doesn't care about that. What a heartbreak that is for a person to know that. But the
Mm.
fact is that's the reality, and therefore, as soon as you can focus in on the legally sufficient items, the better things will go for you, in my opinion. You know.
That is powerful, John. That's so powerful, and that's something that you said. The reaction, and like you mentioned, our mutual mentor, Bob Berg, always mentions this. It takes stop and take a look. Are you responding to the reaction to the situation, or are you reacting to to the situation?
Right.
And if you find yourself in reaction mode, take a step back and find a way where you can do the responding so that you can have an efficient way to move forward.
All right, a better response as opposed to a reaction.
Reaction,
No
yeah.
question. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody, that we're in a group of people talking, and I'll actually see someone close their eyes as if they're meditating for a moment or two, and I'm thinking, what triggered them? Or you'll see someone else, and I've done this myself,
Mhm.
where I'll just take a deep breath. I'll breathe in and breathe out slowly to create to take that trigger and minimize it.
Yeah.
So it's good to see it to try to develop a tactic. You know,
So I have one.
what do you do? You put something more strong than coffee in that cup? Is that what you do?
This is well, there's strong spices in here from India.
Oh, that's right. It's chai time. I
Ja
forgot.
time. Yep.
Mhm. Well, I'm gonna have to get you together with my wife. She's the tea drinker, not me.
Oh, that's amazing. She would love it. Of course, when we start getting back in person, I want to do jaw time live with and have like actually get to share my jaw with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. definitely. It'll be fun. But you were saying, and then I interrupted. What you were talking about, a technique that you use?
Oh yeah, so my tactic or my technique, whatever you want to call it, it's I just adopted it a few months ago, and I don't know if you heard this on one of our Wednesday calls that we get on together. So I was reading the book from Bob Berg, Adversaries into Allies, and I'm practicing everything that, all the steps and everything that's in there. And one day I go into a store and there's this like aggressive salesperson there, the customer service person. I close my eyes and I'm thinking, what would Bob do? So I have a hashtag WWBD that Jeff West.
That's very good.
Like
I'll
our
tell you.
group comes up with hashtag WWBD. What would Bob do?
Perfect, perfect. Well, when one of the things I've learned to do over the years is, when you have that trigger and there's that little negative voice in the back of your mind talking to you, what I do is I say to myself, "You be quiet, Marvin. I don't have time for you." I call my negative, negative
Marvin.
Marvin. I don't, and and that makes me chuckle a little bit, and then I move
That's
on.
like that's like the movie. There's a Disney movie. I forget the name of the movie. My daughter is watching it, and the kid goes. He silences the negative self talk and by saying "Silencio, Bruno."
Okay, very good.
So
Excellent.
that's what that reminded me of.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
that's very funny. And
It's
so tell me, Harjeet, what should my divorce clients consider when they're involved with a real estate deal? What are the kinds of things you would recommend to them?
Oh gosh, I'm going through something right now with the client. um, I recommend when you're in a divorce, the what the couple first needs to do is know about this respond versus reaction, because in a divorce transaction, when there's a transaction with a divorce, there's a lot of reactions flying around between the couples. So find a lawyer, a divorce attorney that will understand both of your needs and go through the process. Look at the divorce steps and the divorce process. Of course, I can't give legal advice. So I always recommend a good, such as you, John, divorce attorney, because John specializes in divorce as well. And, you know, just to really understand, like you said before, John, know your finances.
Yeah.
Know your finances. Stay off of social media. And here's an important one that I think we should add to these steps is tune out outside voices. Because when you're going through a divorce, you have one, now it's like two people. Now two people are going to their family and friends, and they're only hearing that one side of the story, where now they're getting things filled in their head on how a transaction should be dealt with. And then now you have the second party with their family and friends saying this
Yeah.
is what it should be like. So now
Yeah.
you even have more like
Yeah.
hands in the pot that are going to stir up. And so this is how you make job.
That can create a lot of problems, no
That
doubt.
yeah. So when I make
This is
job, and this is a good example, when I make job, I put all the ingredients in and it boils up. The within like so I have the water and then I put the spices in and the spices boil up. And then I add the water after everything is all nice and infused in the hot water, boiling water. So what milk does is milk will boil it up. And if you're not watching the milk, if you're not watching it, that pot will overflow and all the milk, all the tea will go everywhere and it's going to go all over your stove and you end up having to clean it, and now you're going to end up scrubbing because you got like milk residue. You can mess up your stove. I'm talking to you through experience.
Well, I know. That's just like the divorce story that you may get from your friends and family. You know, it'll
That's
it'll
the
change
milk.
a good settlement into a good war.
It's exactly, that's exactly what it do. So you could think of your family members as, or friends, or anybody who you're going outside of your professional help. They're the milk. And if you're not watching and guarding yourself, it's going to spill over
No.
and make a huge mess and chaos. So I would just say, yeah, understand that much, and make it between, just the same way that your marriage was between the two of you, the divorce is between the two of you.
A very good point, no doubt about it. Now I know there's been many questions over the years that have been presented to you by some of your friends and clients about, and same with me, as to what are some ideas about child support. And I kind of categorize three things that you need to keep in mind when you talk about child support that most people don't consider. And the first thing is, it doesn't make any difference what your expenses are. Okay.
Okay.
So the person who has to pay child support and the person who receives child support, they could have a lot of expenses or they could have minimal expenses. They're still going to have to pay or receive a standard amount of child support. Okay. What the child support is governed by a law called the Child Support Standards Act. And what that act says is that for one child, the person who's paying the support pays 17% of their income. For two children, 25%. For three children, 29%. And four children, you probably should get a couple of part time jobs. So, and that's how it works. The more children, the more percentage of income, has nothing to do with how much expenses you have. Okay,
It
and
only has.
and another thing people aren't aware of, there's the only thing that gets deducted from a person's income for child support purposes is strictly Medicare tax and Social Security tax. Okay, state tax, federal tax does not come off of the income. Okay, so that's a very important thing to remember. Okay, another thing that people don't know a lot about and don't consider, and I hope I'm being clear when I use the terms payor and payee. Payor is the person who is paying the child support. The payee is the person who's receiving it. So maybe I should just say that instead of saying payor and payee. But people don't realize the person who is paying the child support income can be more than just the money that you make on your W 2 statement. Income can be other things. So, for example, let's suppose that the person who's paying child support doesn't pay any rent because the person they're living with is paying all of the carrying charges on the house that they're living in or apartment they're living in. Well, that free rent, you know what that's called? That's called a gift. And a gift, as it relates to child support income, is considered income. So frequently, what happens where someone says, "I don't pay any rent, I can't, I can't afford it." Well, what we lawyers say is that, well, that income that money that you would have been paying rent needs to be up into your income because of the fact that you're not paying any rent. That's actually income. A gift for an expense that you would normally have is income, believe it or not. Okay.
So
So, and not a lot of people realize that.
I want to make that clear.
Okay.
So if, say there's a payee that's not making any income, and that's not paying rent. And that payee says, I'm not paying rent. So if they're not paying that rent, then that rental income that the payer is paying is
That
considered
gift, that
that
gift
gift
of
the
the
payer
rental of the free rent
is considered income on
would be income for child support purposes.
for
Okay.
child support purposes.
So, take I just had a case about 3 or 4 weeks ago. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, I don't think we got a decision on that yet. We'll have to take a check on that. But the person who was seeking to get a downward modification of their child support, okay, said their income had declined. And I asked them, I noticed that on their financial disclosure affidavit that they didn't show any rent. So I asked them where he was living. He says, I live in a house. It's a 3 bedroom house. I have a bedroom. He has access to the kitchen, access to the whole house. Okay.
Mhm.
And I said, well, if you had to pay rent there, what do you think it would go for? So at least $1,500. So I asked the judge to impute or say that in fact that he was actually receiving an extra $1,500 in income because that was what the value was
Mm.
of that particular item at that time. You know,
Okay.
and it happens with frequency because people are not aware. We all think that, well, it's just what it says on the tax return, or it's just income is just what it says on the W-2 statement.
So
But there are other factors.
there are other factors.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a lot. I'm taking it in right now.
yeah,
But these
and
are good things to know about.
yeah. Well, that's why it's always a good idea to watch our videos because you learn stuff.
Yes, definitely.
No question about it. It's
Yep. And
it's
then
very interesting. I agree. I
it
agree.
is, it's so interesting. And then just to like learn about all of this stuff, this is things that when we're dealing with clients that are going through stuff like this, we know we're sending them to somebody who knows what they're dealing with. And it's not just, look, you're not just looking at your finances, what's on your taxes and whatever. You're looking at everything that you could
No question.
possibly. That's
There,
great.
there are a tremendous amount of things to consider
Mhm.
based on each individual case. One of the enjoyable things for lawyers is that the law is so complex and every fact pattern is different. And of course, that creates concern on many people because of the fact that there's no standard automatic rule. Someone once said to me that you lawyers basically have one standard answer when asked you the question, and it's true. And the answer is, well, it depends. And it does. It
Because every
really
case is
does
different.
depend. It depends on the
Mhm.
the specific situation that we're in, at any given time. There's no doubt about it. The Now, what if a couple is about to put their house up for sale? What kinds of things should they be doing that you would recommend as it relates to the sale of the property?
Normal things like staging the house, that's important. Scheduling, because now that they're going through a different uh, an on like you said, it depends on the situation. If it's not such a messy situation and the couple's like, this is a healthy divorce, then I'm sure scheduling is important to look at, even if it is a messy divorce. You want to make sure that the scheduling is important. The scheduling aligns with both parties of the couple of that couple. So you know
When you say scheduling, I'm confused. What are you
scheduling for
referring to?
showings the property. So in order to sell the house, it's important. This is something I went through. So in order to sell the house, it's important to show the property. And it's important to keep the property clean and showable and staged nicely so that when people do walk in the house, they're looking at a house and they're visioning, this is where I want to live. This is my home.
Mm,
And sometimes what happens is the other, whoever's staying in the property may not be so happy about this move or the sale. So they could really say, I don't want to show the property, or this is the only time I'm going to show the property,
yeah.
which makes it harder for that sale because now we're only limited to a certain amount of buyers to show the property to.
Mhm.
So, going through those steps of having the ability to show the property is important. So when I say scheduling a showing to show the property or do open houses at least so that you could bring in foot traffic, so that you could see, more buyers coming in and show the
Mhm.
property. So everybody has an opportunity to purchase the house then. But sometimes we can get into a sticky situation where the other person's like, no, I don't want to show the property at all. Or one day they're ready to show it, and then the next day, no, I don't want to show it.
It's the reaction coming up, bubbling up from the emotions. No question.
Yes, that's
No question.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So, if anything, one of the major things I would suggest is to really strategize or lay that out from the beginning is how are we showing this property?
Yeah.
Because that could really hinder the sale.
It's
It
a
could
very
really
good
hinder
idea.
the value of the property.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I wanted to mention for the viewers out there, if you have any questions right now, you can put the questions in the comments and I can ask John right away. If you still have any questions after, if you're viewing this afterwards, still put the questions in. And then, of course, I can reach out to John and ask him and
Very good.
maybe get on another call next time
Happy,
and
happy
answer
to do
those questions.
more than happy, to talk to anybody, to be of
Thank
assistance at any time. You know that, RG. We're
thank
talking about you're talking about property, and there's three things I wanted to point out about property in general as people go through a divorce. That is some misconceptions, things that people may not be aware of. I can't tell you how many times people will come to me and say, "Well, that piece of property is only in my name,
you.
so it doesn't belong to my spouse." No, it doesn't make any difference how things are titled. It could be it could be in either of the people's names and it's still marital property. Now, when I say that, there are certain exceptions to that, so that if someone brought property into a marriage,
Mhm.
well, and it was separate property, no ownership right at that time by the other spouse to that property. Well, at that time, the day that they get married, well, the value of the property on that day is separate property.
The
Okay.
value of the
The
property the day
value,
that they get married?
right. It's separate because one person had it, not both of them. So
Okay.
now what happens is the increase in value becomes marital property. So it's very important to value the property on different dates, the date of the marriage, the date the divorce starts, and so forth, in order to come up with what the value would be in terms of the divorce. Another thing is that not all income that comes into a marriage is necessarily marital income. Sometimes there's an expense that was paid that really is a property only of one spouse. And the classic example is student loans. Frequently, when people get married these days, one or both spouses come to the marriage with a student loan. Well, whatever you pay off that student loan with, whatever money you have that's coming in during the marriage, that's marital money. Okay, so let's suppose I'm married to my wife and she has no student debt. I'm the only one with student debt. And every week we're a happy married couple. We put our money into the our joint account, and I'm making 100,000 and she's making 40,000. I pay off $200,000 in marital debt. Okay, not marital debt. I'm sorry, student loan debt, which is only my property. 200,000, and that was marital money because it was income during the marriage. Well, guess what? I can't do that. Okay, I can only use my personal money, not marital money, to pay off that student debt. So if we were to get divorced, I would owe her $100,000 because I paid off 200,000 with marital money, and only 100 was mine, 100 was hers.
So
Okay,
then,
so
oh,
very few people are aware of that, and it's a very important issue. Okay,
so
so
now is that with, so say if you get married and you have student loans prior to your marriage and you get married, would that be included as well? Or
yep,
is
it's separate property.
it
Yeah,
separate property? So what if you
or
get married
separate.
and and you go to school while you're married? Now is that marital debt or
Stu-
student debt?
Federal student loans are always considered to be separate property,
Okay.
even if they're incurred during the marriage. Okay,
Okay. That's
yeah,
good. So
yeah,
you
it's
heard that, guys.
a
It's
crazy
fully
thing.
separate.
The crazy thing. That's why I tell all my young friends. I say, make sure you before you guys get married, make sure you take a look at each other's net worth statement and figure out what the money's are. you you should be prepared. And you know what? People really are more and more people are doing pre what's called prenuptial agreements
Hmm.
where they actually go over what's going to be separate property in the future, what's going to be marital property in the future, who's going to pay for what expenses in what way. You know, because there's a lot more things today to consider than
Yeah,
there ever were. You know? The world is much more complex on a daily basis. It gets more and more complex. There's no question. You know,
it
so
does.
you have two kids today who are 32, 33 years old. They get married, and they may have substantial 401ks already. They
Hmm.
may own some separate property. They may have some separate debt, and they need to talk about that sort of thing and come to a conclusion to see if there's anything they want to put
That
into effect as to what's going to happen should they get a divorce.
that
No
is great
question.
advice, John. I never considered. I married young, so we didn't consider prenup, and everything we do is together.
Yeah.
And it's just like we always. Now I'm thinking, like you said, we have two children that are teenagers, and I was telling my husband, I said, "Gosh, we can be grandparents now."
Yeah. It goes quick. Time goes quick.
Our kids are old enough to make us grandparents. I tell
Yeah.
my kids, you better not do that.
No, you're too young for that. No question about it. Well, it's you know it's funny how you mention it. You know you never considered it. Well, when I was young, you didn't have the massive debts that you could possibly have. You know
Yeah,
today a 21-year-old person gets out of college or gets out of high school at 18 or 19, and right away they need a car, so they go out and they lease a car for $300 a month.
yeah,
And whereas when I was a kid, you bought a used car for $800, it was fine. We didn't have the expensive cell phones. We didn't need to have any internet connection. So before they so much as pay 2 cents for rent, they've got $400 or $500 in expense just to
yeah,
communicate and drive. You know that didn't it's just times have changed quite a bit, and they'll change again. No
yeah.
question. Well,
You're
it's
absolutely right because there's so many different things that are happening now. So now you want to know what debt is coming in this
right.
marriage
Yeah.
and what assets you want to protect. Catherine Quinn, she said, prenups sound like a great idea to protect what you have before the marriage. Definitely.
That they are. And the other thing, by the way, people don't realize it, but you can actually do a post-nuptial agreement. So you can go ahead and be married even for some number of years and put together a contract between the two of you relative to if a divorce happens, what's going to happen with the various assets. Now, one mistake that people make is sometimes they assume that that prenuptial agreement or postnuptial agreement is something that you do after you're married. Okay,
Mhm.
they assume that that would replace a will. It doesn't replace a will. Doesn't replace estate planning. The postnuptial agreement or prenuptial agreement is only goes into effect if there's a divorce. Okay?
Oh,
All right. So somebody dies, that doesn't mean that the prenuptial agreement controls the way the property is distributed.
yeah.
There still has to be an estate plan put together.
And that's another thing that you can do is do the estate planning. So we covered divorce. We covered family. That's part of. I'm thinking is prenups and postnups and understanding all of the finances that come into the marriage. Is that family law, family planning? Would
That's
that
still that's still family law.
that's
Yes,
family law?
definitely. That's family law, and it's also to some degree, financial planning is
Hmm.
something that needs to be done, and it's not only for how to figure out what stocks to buy,
Yeah.
but also to work on a person's expenses and look at assets and expenses and income and figure out how you want to live your life. To put together a budget. And I think more and more people do that in today's economy because people are much more savvy, and they do need to be savvy because of the ups and downs of the economy and all of the various expenses that are out there. We mentioned estate planning. I only wanted to say one thing today about estate planning, and that is by all means the most important thing that I could tell you about estate planning is avoid probate, because probate takes a very long time, is expensive. Okay, it's public, and I have several cases now that are going on for months and months and months, and the property still has not been distributed. Okay, so whatever you do, to me, the biggest issue in estate planning is to try and avoid probate. And the way that you can do that is to have a trust and not a will, because a trust is a private document between the grantor and the trustee and the people who are the beneficiaries, whereas a will is a public document that must go into court in order to distribute the assets. So you can save untold amounts of time, sometimes well over a year. You can also save legal fees of going to probate, and also the cost of the monies required to be given to your state for the transactions of being in the probate court. And it saves so much heartache out there. I have a situation right now where a father-in-law made his daughter-in-law, his children had passed away. He made his daughter-in-law the executrix, which is the person who's in charge of putting the assets together and
Hmm.
distributing them. He made her the person who was in charge of putting everything together. So we go into probate, set everything up over there. Okay, we now during this time she has no money to maintain the property. She had a minimal amount of money. She had to go out and borrow money to pay some of the expenses of the property in order to maintain it. Now, she will get that back eventually when the house is sold, but it's still, if you don't have it to take out of your pocket, it's a heartache to have to
Mhm.
put these things on credit cards or take out a personal bank loan, and you can avoid all of that by simply substituting the trust for the will. Okay, and I heartily recommend that to everybody out there who owns property. Okay,
That
and
trust is better than the will.
by far, by far.
I did have a case like that in when I was selling, and it was to see the couple go through what they were going through because they had their parents' property, and they had I love your cup.
Yeah.
I should have used mine.
That's my that's our mentor Bob Berg. A good name.
um, yeah, it's an awesome one. You go on my page and you'll see how to get that mug. Go Giver Success Alliance. I yeah, it was such a heartache to see this couple go through what they had to go through to take care of their mom's property, and they the state was going to take almost everything away from them just because it was still under the name of the mom of the parents, and it was
Yes.
willed to the son. But this is that I would love for maybe we can get on another live and we can go deep on just trust and will and the difference and how it benefits property owners to have a trust
Sure.
versus the will. Um, I love
We
the yeah, we can go
yeah,
deep into that because I think that's so important to know because I've seen the heartache that some people have gone through.
yeah,
Just
most
because,
definitely.
yeah,
And I'd like you also to give some deep thought in terms of what are the kinds of things a couple should be doing in
okay,
order to get that house ready for the divorce. How you mentioned how you show it, doing a schedule and so
mhm,
forth. And I'm sure there are multiple
more,
other things
yeah,
that you're aware of that would
mhm,
be very wise to that I think people like to hear it. No doubt
yeah.
about it. There's a
What
lot of lot
prepared?
of lot of good information that you got.
Oh, definitely.
No
I'm just gonna
question
write
about
that down so for the next time we get on a call together.
it. Okay. Yeah. So that we always have plenty to talk about, Harjeet, you and I.
We do. It's amazing. And you know what? This is what the beauty is. This is what I call a round table of professionals. When you do look for someone to work with when you're selling a house, you want to work with somebody that has resources to go to, not just to sell the property, but who can I send you to if Catherine, I don't know if she's still watching. She always has a guy, right? If something needs to be done in the house, plumbing needs to be done in the house, I have a guy. If any
No,
termites, I have a guy. Like we're going through something right now, and she sent someone within 24 hours. They went to the property to take a good look at it and make sure everything was good. And
it's extremely important. You either have a guy or a cousin who's in the business who you know, like, and trust. So,
yeah,
so important. No doubt about it.
that is the most important.
No,
You know, like, and trust them. And I say guy, like, guy or
no,
gal.
I forgot. I forgot. See, I'm old enough that I'm allowed to say that, though. I give myself a pass, just on the years based on the years of being offensive.
Yeah, but it just want I know, that's why I just want to make sure you have a person, you have a professional person with you. Um, she said, I'm still here.
Huh? Very good. Very good.
She's
Good.
my gal. She is my
She's,
person.
she's one of our top audience members. No
Uh,
doubt about that. No
definitely.
question. I hope all is well with you, Catherine, and things are going good.
I'm sure she'll comment back. But it's amazing that, and this is the importance of having this circle, this roundtable of people, professionals, so that you can have a smooth transaction. And if something does arrive, then you know exactly who to go to.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's one of the most important things that you did mention. So for these top, I love the question, what are the three most important things we need to consider when planning for anything that may happen in the future during that has to be involved with family law. And I love the top three things: stay off of social media, know your finances, seek professional mental health, and everything in between that we were talking about did align with all three of those. It's basically what we're doing is we are building a blueprint for our future. And if we're building that blueprint, we know exactly, okay, this is what it looks like if such and such was to occur. So, like, say god forbid we have to go through something like this and we're going through a loss, and go back into your blueprint and look, okay, this is the next step to take to get
Definitely.
me past that.
Yeah, and that's yeah, that's where uh, folks like us can help people provide clarity. We
Hmm.
we want people to be clear about the issues they're facing, and also clear about the options, and recognize that if a negative option is going to occur, it's a good thing if you know about what the possible negative option is, because you'll soon recognize that the world is not going to end. If only the negative option happens, you're still going to be able to survive. Okay,
Yep.
and I think that clarity. Uh, I know when I'm planning out a case, I love to be able to provide the clarity, because it allows me and my client to really move forward in a good, orderly fashion. I don't always win every single case and get my client every single thing they want. No lawyer does.
Yep.
But every one of my clients knows what the options are, and also knows what they would need to do if the worst possible option occurred. You know?
That's important. I
And
love.
that's important in your profession, every profession. You know?
I was just going to say that that's exactly what we go through from the very beginning is what it's going to look like and what
Mhm.
are the options and what may happen if we don't get what we want,
Right.
right? And that goes back to that responding versus reaction. We're preparing ourselves already that we're going to respond to anything that happens moving forward versus reacting. And it just gives us more sense of that calmness, like you said, just take that deep breath and
That's right.
hashtag WWBD.
That's right. No doubt. That's the way to do it. No
That's
question about
exactly.
it. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, thank
Okay.
you so much, John, for joining us again
Well,
today. This is John's second appearance to Jaw with Realtor Jeet. I'm so honored and delighted. I always have fun. And you know what? You teach law in such a fun way. Like, you want to learn.
well, good. I'm glad, because I do want to help people gain clarity about their situations, because I know once they find clarity, things get easier. There's no doubt about it, you know? And
Yes,
thanks, Arjit, for inviting me.
my pleasure.
We always have great conversations, and I urge everybody to tune in. You're doing this every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, or a couple of times a month. What's your process now?
So now it's, yes, every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Next week we have another realtor coming. No,
Good.
next week we have my coach, Sekou Pyle, coming, and he is the best. He's like taught me so much, and during the pandemic, he's helped so many real estate agents. He took his own time out to help so many real estate agents um, get through this together virtually, which is
Great.
amazing. So be sure to tune in next week at 4 p.m. Uh, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then I also do a premiere. So you will see this video on Tuesday at 11. It's gonna premiere Monday at 11, and it'll be on YouTube, so you could watch it anytime. And if you have any questions, you can ask them, and then I will forward them to whoever our guest speakers are if they're available, and then I'll ask them the questions and try to get back to you with it. So, John, I do appreciate
A
you
great thing.
being here, and I would love for you to close out. And thank you again for taking the
Well,
time to come here today.
thank you so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to all these wonderful people, and share your space today. It's been just like the first time. It's been a lot of fun,
Def-
very informational, and you have a great, wonderful evening, and you and your lovely family continue to be blessed. Take
Thank
care.
you so much. I appreciate you. Just give me one moment. I'm going to end the broadcast. Bye, friends. Love you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.